On October 4th of this year, Pope Francis traveled to Assisi, and he signed and promulgated a new and challenging encyclical that began with the words Fratelli Tutti. How's that for Italian, huh? We are brothers and sisters. The encyclical is always like a letter to the whole church and to the world. And it's something that the Pope might do, depending how long he lives, several times or not so many times. But it's always a letter that's important. So with this letter to all the world, the Pope is calling Christians and non-Christians to come together as brothers and sisters, as one people, one family of God. Pope Francis wrote this encyclical in the midst of a worldwide pandemic, and he mentions it several times through the encyclical. He also wrote at a time when our world is truly fractured by division, fractured by mistrust and violence. And so the Pope is addressing that, and he's addressing in this encyclical, what can we do as brothers and sisters, Fratelli Tutti, to come together? If we believe together in the one God who calls us to be one, then we must treat, the Pope says, all men and women as our brothers and sisters. If we are going to be one in God, then we must feed the poor, attend to the climate, respect life at every stage, and come together as a human family. We must ask ourselves, who do we dislike, reject, or even hate? Is it a neighbor? Is it someone from the other political party? Is it a family member? Someone from another race or nation? Immigrant or refugee? Someone sick or dying? Whom do we refuse to admit to our sisterhood and brotherhood? Who do we fail to admit to our family? The second reading in today's liturgy helps us to understand the mission that Pope Francis is calling us to live. He's calling everyone, all people of goodwill, to put their faith into action. We are, in a sense, being called to get up off our couch and get out to heal the world. The work of creating solidarity and community in our world isn't in the hands only of the clergy, the bishops, the cardinals, the imams, the rabbis, but rather it is in the hands of every human person. No one should back away, says the Pope, from this call. He calls us to rebuild our fragmented world. We are called to be bridge builders instead of building walls. What walls have we built in our hearts? We humans are not independent of one another and all-powerful. We are all in the same boat. We share the human journey along with the migrant and the refugee. We should share the joys and sorrows of all people. The gospel message today reminds us that mere loyalty to political parties or government philosophy is not enough. That doesn't mean we should not be involved in our civil society. Of course we should. But more than that, the Pope says to us, we must do what God is asking of us. And reminds us in the gospel, is it lawful to pay the census tax to Caesar or not? We cannot read the four gospels without learning that Jesus calls all men and women to become brothers and sisters. We're called to feed the poor, to love our enemies, to turn the other cheek, and to do justice. When Jesus says, give to God what is God, this is what he is talking about. Doing what he has told us to do. Doing what he showed us to do by his life. In this beautiful encyclical, we're invited to reflect on what God is calling us individuals to do. He begs the world to avoid war at all costs. Jesus never promoted violence or intolerance. We are called to promote a culture of life for the unborn and all who are defenseless. We are called to welcome the stranger in our midst, to generously support their needs, tear down all divisions that we have built in our hearts. These are not political ideas. These are the teachings of Jesus. Jesus wants us to give him a world where the dignity of all life is respected, and where solidarity is in the human family is promoted, not division or hatred. Our world is too divided. We must work to unite it. As long as there are starving children and refugees, sick people without the means for proper medical care or access to proper education, rumors of war, pandemics, and a declining natural environment, we should not, as Christians, rest. We still have so much to do. If we sit back, we are not rendering to God what is his. All people have a right to a fully developed human life. In the next several weeks, I will have an article in the bulletin giving some thoughts and reflections on this challenging encyclical from Pope Francis. I got inspired to do that, and then I said, "What are you thinking, Robert?" It's 75 pages long. And so I'll be simply pulling some things from there, from each of the chapters that he has in the encyclical. I think one of the most beautiful chapters is the second chapter, where he reflects on the parable of the Good Samaritan. It's a beautiful, challenging reflection. And so I hope that the article that I leave will be a help for all of us to work towards the goal of standing up for what is God's and what God wants for this world, and how we can begin to be healers of this divided world.